Hey guys, Magaz here, connecting you to Airsoft. This video is going to be the second episode of a new series I'm working on, inspired by legendary Warhammer YouTuber Northern Exile's series, Hobby Nightmares. If you missed the first episode, there will be a playlist link in the end cards, and here's a TLDR. These first few episodes I'll be talking about mishaps, unfortunate events, injuries, run-ins with players or site staff, and just fun things that have happened in my almost 25 years playing Airsoft. I'm hoping that in the future we can tell your stories too. If you have a tale to tell, type it up and send it over to the podcast email address bdpod@gmail.com, which is down in the description for those who can't tell what I'm saying. Or alternatively, jump onto the Magaz Discord channel, which again, link down in the description. Send me a DM with your story, I'll read them out on here. If it's an issue you're having, I'll put my thoughts and advice out there, and I'll try to make the whole thing entertaining. In the last episode, we talked about a few times I had hit my head hard and a light-hearted battle against a swarm of wasps. In this episode, we will talk about 3 different times I know of that someone has lost a tooth. And we will end with the time I broke my knee, which I mentioned briefly in the last episode. Tooth shots are something that freaks me out. Back in the day, I hated having to wear a full face mask. I just wanted the realism of not wearing one. Then, when I progressed to playing CQB, I would run games and martial with just shooting glasses that, looking back, were far too big for my face. I was not only risking my teeth, my face, but possibly my eyesight too. With the gaps those glasses left, I was shown the error of my ways eventually, and since the mid-2000s, I have worn paintball masks or full face protection as a permanent thing. Over the years, I have been the cause or witnessed 3 separate incidents of teeth being damaged or shot out entirely. We will start with what I think is the oldest one and go through to the most recent one. Back in the early 2000s, maybe around 2003, 2004, we would play Airsoft over at a friend's house. His back garden was reasonably sized, not big enough, of course, for 8 of us to be running AEGs and gas blowbacks full send, which we did, but big enough, kind of. Out of interest, I went out to Google Earth to measure the garden. The longest part, which ran from the back fence and down the ginnel at the side of the house, is 20 meters. Hang on a minute. How many of you aren't Northern British and have no idea what the fuck a ginnel is? Let's go to the dictionary. A ginnel is a word in various Scottish and Northern English dialects describing a fenced or walled alley between a residential building that provides a pedestrian shortcut to nearby streets. Ginnels are typically found in suburban areas and do not contain any business premises, unlike some other types of alley. The ginnel is very narrow and could barely fit 2 people side by side. The rest of the garden is 10 meters by 9 meters, and a conservatory and a shed both eat into the total space. We used the conservatory, shed, ginnel, and upended tables and other random shit as cover. It was mainly a 1 team hides behind the shed and 1 team hides in the ginnel and just shoot at each other kind of event. We'd spend the whole evening just slinging .12s at each other from stock AGs and old school gas blowback TMPs and micro uses. It was a great way to spend a Friday evening. We also had to watch out for landmines. He had golden retrievers. They were the mine placement technicians. I will leave that to your imagination. The incident with the tooth shot went down one evening between 2 friends. Des, whose house it was, he was running a KSC TMP, and Shorty, I forget what Shorty was running. I was behind Des as we tried to push out from behind the ginnel. Plumber took the lead. He was just ahead of Des. Plumber took a hit from Shorty and whoever else was hiding behind the shed. Des, out of nowhere, hooked his arm through the back of Plumber's vest and stuffed the TMP under his right armpit, shouting, "Human shield! Human shield!" He sprayed nonchalantly at the shed. This was replied immediately with, as a shot flew in and it connected with Shorty's tooth, just doing a little bit of a tooth explode. Of course, with the back garden being absolutely covered in little tiny white balls, we all made the, "Oh, is this your tooth? Oh, fucking hell no, sorry mate, it's a BB." We all made that joke like God knows how many times. And to make it better, I believe Shorty had already been banned from playing Airsoft by his folks, and this obviously was going to be an issue for him. He did end up playing extensively a handful of years later though, so I guess this incident didn't put him off completely. The second incident, ironically, also involved both Des and Plumber. We were up at the first all-arms outdoor site. At that time it was called Elite Fire Zone, and it was the second elite site. We were regulars, had a hand in the birth of the site, and would sometimes marshal and help out at the place. At the time, we considered elite our home. We would sometimes head up there outside of game days to practice and build bunkers and camp and just have a great time. It was a fantastic era. This particular incident happened during a break in between some of the games one day. Plumber had the old Team Matrix MP5K that at some point in time most of us called our own. It came from the early 2000s days. Madcat bought it from the old blue forums and he owned it for many years. Eventually it got passed from player to player in the team, and at this point I believe it was either Des or Plumber who owned it. Either way, it chronoed at just under 200 with .2s, but it still had remarkable range. For those of you watching the video and not just listening along, there's a bit of footage in the background now of that MP5K in use at Firezone. So for this situation, Plumber was on the top of a little mini hill we called Hamburger Hill. This hill was the site of an amazing game, which you can see the footage of right now, and I'll be talking about this in another episode. It's a whole story just on its own. Des was on the plateau, which is a larger hill. It's about 50 meters away. I mean, according to Google Earth anyway. Des was avoiding incoming shots on top of the plateau. A few of us were firing at him and just pissing about with our stock AGs. It was basically just harassing fire at that point. That is, until Plumber sends a round downrange from the legendary MP5K. This thing just soars through the air at the speed of smell. It hits Des straight in the mouth. And from this distance, we could see that he was not happy. As it turns out, the shot had taken out his front tooth. Now this could be karma for his actions against Shorty, served by the very human shield he used in the Action of Extreme Remote Dentistry. Who can say? We like to think it was. The final incident involves myself, luckily for me not on the receiving end. At the time, I was helping run a bar in town. It was called The Attic, or as we affectionately named it, Twattic. One of my teammates, Jimmy D, who you might recognize from the podcast and gameplay videos on the channel, had expressed interest in starting to play Airsoft. So, as most sensible people do, he bought some guns from a friend of a friend who was getting out of the game and booked into a game the following Sunday. We were heading out to SWAT sighting camp. He had never been shot and had barely any experience shooting, so I came up with the following proposal. I would bring a bunch of pistols to the bar, lock them in the safe, and at the end of the night, once everyone is out and we've mopped the puke from the floor, locked the doors, myself, Jimmy and Smithy would have a free-for-all pistol game. So we had the house lights down, the lasers and stage lights and all the usual ambient lighting on to create a nice atmosphere. The idea was I would start at the entrance of the bar. This is right at the top of the stairs that pissheads would often fall down. As you might have guessed, with the attic being called the attic, it was in the attic, and it was up a metric shit ton of stairs. The bar was about 20 meters long by 10 meters wide, with the entrance I was posted up at down at one end. The doorway to the toilets 20 meters opposite, and at the halfway point on the right was a doorway out to the smoking shelter. Smithy was starting from the smoking shelter and Jimmy was by the toilets. The objective was a brush and shovel in the center. I had to grab it and place it in Jimmy's door. Jimmy had to do the same, and Smithy could either put it in my door or Jimmy's door. What Jimmy didn't know is Smithy and I had formed an alliance. Those two had KSC Glocks of various flavors, and I had Madcat's Western Arms SVI Infinity 6-inch race gun. It was an absolute monster. We called the game on, and Smithy put some fire down on Jimmy's door. I posted up and took aim at the door around, head height. Jimmy stuck his face around the corner, and I squeezed the trigger. The BB soared through the air and impacted with Jimmy's front tooth, knocking it clean the fuck out. Cue a whistling Jimmy and all the standard, is this your tooth, mate? Jokes. Jimmy managed to get his tooth fixed by a trainee dentist next week, and he still came to play the next day like an absolute fucking legend. Have any of you guys had any tooth-related incidents? Drop me a line at bdpod@gmail.com or head over to the Magaz Discord and DM me, and we will talk about your extreme methods of dentistry. Right, now we are on to the main event, so to speak. The big story for this episode. Before we get up to our nuts in my broken knees guts, go ahead, please hit that like button. For this final story, we head back again to the legendary Boys Village Dragon Valley site. Around a year after the previous incident, again, this was the last game of the day. The same attack and defense situation, located in and around the pool house and gymnasium. Don't worry, there's no pool house incident this time. If you recall from the last episode, the layout to the gymnasium was pretty straightforward. Along one side is a set of stone bleachers with a door at the top leading out to the pool house. Either end of the courts was a single door, one leading to the outside world, one leading to the showers. By the top end door was a cupboard that went inwards like an L shape. This is an important location for this one. The plan we came up with to win this game, as we spread around the gym using the various pieces of cover and communicate, as the enemy team pushes in, we will pull back to the cupboard, which we called the Alamo. And that would be our last stand. All we had to do was hold them off long enough to run the timer down, and we would be victorious. We took up our positions, making sure we had converging arcs of fire, and all three openings had at least a few barrels pointing at them. The enemy team started their attack, and we began our challenging defense. As the enemy pushed the doors, they started to throw the big fuck-off orange smokes in, just like last time. And this time around, we weren't playing against just the regulars at the site. This was the final game of the second day of the Yukon Summer Weekender. Everybody who was anybody and anybody who was probably somebody was in attendance, including such early Airsoft celebrities as the Wasps, or Wickham Airsoft Special Squad, featuring the legendary Silver Fox, the OG Airsoft celebrity himself, Hitman AC, Walking Target, Kessler Dutch, and all the other yellow triangle patch wearing guys with reputations as incredible players. Animal Mother was also in attendance. For some reason, at one point, Silver wanted his boot prints on the ceiling above the stairwell in the safe zone, so Animal and I believe Hitman inverted him and stuck his feet to the ceiling. Good times. A sensible person might have just taken his boots off and stuck them to the ceiling, but not Silver. A lot of the #Airsoft MIRC Insomniac Army were in attendance too, with Thorman standing out in my memory for pulling a toilet cubicle door off its hinges at one point. He was on our team for the defense, but the Wasps, they were kicking in our back door with terminal intensity. As the Wasps and friends started to make entrance, one of us gave the call out to start pulling back towards the Alamo. We had planned to use some cover and move techniques to help us achieve this. The enemy fire became very intense. We started to pepper pot just as we had planned. A guy on my team set himself behind a piece of cover and shouted for me to move. I took off, full sprint, and got maybe 3 steps into it before tripping over what I believe was a piece of wood screwed to the floor. I assume it was part of what used to be a piece of cover. Whatever it was, it took my foot out from underneath me, and I landed on the only Accrington Norrie brick in Wales, knee first. The MP5 SD6 I was running slid out across the floor. I smashed down hard in a heap. For a moment, just slightly embarrassed and worried that I'd smashed a higher gun to bits, I tried to scramble forwards to grab the MP5, but I couldn't put any weight on my leg without intense pain. The other player, worried that I was injured, scooted over to me and asked if he should call a ceasefire. By this time, adrenaline was going through the roof. The marshal could be heard shouting, 3 minutes, blue team! You can hold it! Some shit like that. I figured, you're fucking damn right we can. And worried that if we call a ceasefire, they might just call the game there. So I told the guy, drag me by my LBV into the Alamo. It was a heroic as fuck looking moment that I wish we had on camera. In my mind, I remember it being like an action movie, all smoke and flashing lights, tracer rounds soaring through the air, and me being dragged injured under fire by a teammate into cover. As he pulled me slowly, my leg began to bang on shit and the pain went through the roof, as of course did my heart rate. I did my best impression of Hudson at the end of Aliens and started firing towards the doorway the enemy team was pushing through. We reached the cupboard and I clambered in and sunk into the corner, safe, hidden away from the incoming BBs, protected by the remnants of blue team. I could hear the marshal counting down the time, and then it hit me. Dickhead, you're really hurt and you should have called a ceasefire. It was the longest 2 minutes of my life. Well, I mean, the longest 2 minutes until that point. I've had plenty of long 2 minutes since then, but that's a whole different ballgame. Sat there while the game went on without me, I started to question my decision and whether this was a mistake, and before I could act on it, the marshal called game over. We had held off the attacking team and taken the victory. I had to be helped back to the safe area where, lucky for me, the guy who drove us down was waiting. There was a paramedic and could see that I had done some serious damage to my knee. He strapped it up, gave me some painkillers, and recommended that as soon as I get home, I asked to be taken to A&E. That, however, would be at least 7 hours from now, given we had to pack up and do a 5-hour drive home with a pee break at the halfway point. By the time I got home, my knee was fat, black and purple, and I couldn't bend my leg. I was out of action for a long while after that. I guess the moral of the story here is knee pads, guys. Wear knee pads. If not for situations like this, at least to prevent yourself from screaming when you inevitably kneel on that stupid fucking BB in the safe zone. With that knee-shattering tale of, well, fun, I guess, we will close out the second episode of Airsoft Hobby Nightmares. The next episode will be some more of my tales. We will take a look at a few times where we have run into the armed police. But going forward, I'd love to hear your stories. You can send them over to bdeeppod@gmail.com. Yeah, I know. That is the email for the podcast. Like I said in the last episode, there's going to be a video coming about that in the near future. If you want to know when that goes live, or when the next Hobby Nightmares goes live, hit subscribe and ring the bell. If you want to support the channel like these fine chaps, go over to patreon.com/cbmpc. Whilst writing this video, I gave Boys Village a Googs to find some footage to help my memory. I found this video by Genre Urbex. It's worth a watch if you want to see what Dragon Valley looks like, at least in the last couple of years. I had been planning on heading down there at some point super soon and reenacting these events, making a video on the old site and reliving the old glory days. But unfortunately, from what I've read in the comments of some of the Urbex videos, it's now rip in peace, Boys Village. All that remains is the church. Sad news aside, thanks for watching. I'm Magaz, and remember kids, the air may be soft, but our balls are hard. Also, take a look at this video here if you want to see the previous video. If you're seeing this in the future, this playlist here will have a lot of videos in just like this too. And you can follow this here to take a look at the OG Northern Exiles Hobby Nightmares playlist.